Mauricio Dubón traded to the Houston Astros, Albert Pujols on the mound facing the Giants, and an area where Joey Bart is among the best players in baseball. So we'll talk about a crazy weekend that was next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, and I'm a lifelong fan. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. And where we're going to start is, at first, a little more reaction to the Mauricio Dubón trade. We did put out an emergency podcast on Saturday when that deal went down. We're also going to talk about the weekend that was in general. The Giants playing Sunday Night Baseball last night, generally a very ugly game, but it got lighthearted towards the end with Luis González on the mound for the Giants, Albert Pujols on the mound for the Cardinals. Giants hit a couple home runs against Pujols. Longoria had a hit, asked for the ball, so we'll get into that a little bit. But I want to start with the trade. And so this is all a consequence of the roster crunch. And the roster crunch continues at this point. So we're going to speculate about how they're going to get Tommy La Stella onto the roster. He appears to be ready to come back, yet there isn't an obvious move to make to get him back onto the Major League roster. So Tyler Beede and Mauricio Dubón were both on the Major League roster to start the year because they were out of options. We did numerous episodes talking about how they had to perform in the first month of the season, or else they were at risk of either being DFA'd or traded, and that's exactly what happened. Tyler Beede ends up getting DFA'd, and then he was claimed by the Pittsburgh Pirates, so he's now on their Major League roster. And Dubón, it was a trade to the Houston Astros, and so the reason they traded him was that otherwise they probably would have had to DFA him, in which case you could still work out a deal, but if no deal gets worked out, you have to expose him to waivers and he gets claimed and you get nothing for him. So I think some people are probably wondering, why not just hold on to him? It's a matter of a couple of things. Number one, the lack of minor league options. And so I just want to point out, this team that won 107 games last year, Mauricio Dubón was not really a part of it. Like, I think a lot of people forget, he wasn't really here in 2021 for much of the year. He was here in the beginning, and then he was optioned. That's the thing, is he could be optioned last year. It was his last option year remaining. And Thairo Estrada eventually came up and played well enough that he basically took that spot from Dubón, who I don't think he came back after he was sent down for the rest of the year. And so Estrada essentially took his place, and that continued to be the case. The only reason they the only reason they felt the need to have Dubón on the roster was that they couldn't send him down. And so it was a matter of, basically it probably was inevitable that they were going to trade him unless there was some kind of injury to Thairo Estrada, or I don't know, maybe Austin Slater. I see a lot of people talking about how they prefer Dubón to Lastella. And on Saturday in our emergency podcast, I broke down why. First of all, I don't think you can prefer whoever you want, but the numbers don't back that up at all. And they did not fill the same role on the roster whatsoever. Lastella is a player who hits right-handed pitching. That's his whole job. And for Dubón, it was pretty much the opposite. His career numbers and then the numbers this year, all of his success so far in his major league career has come against left-handed pitching, where he's been about 25-30% above league average production when he's facing a lefty. Against righties, he was about 30% below league average. And so, yeah, I mean, he wasn't an everyday guy. He was a platoon guy on the weak side. There are fewer lefties, and so to be a weak side platoon player it just has limited value. And the Giants have a couple other players like that: Austin Slater, Darren Ruff, And the thing is, they're better at the plate. And for Ruff, he's actually been able to maintain even above average offense against right-handed pitchers in his time with the Giants. And he's just destroyed lefties. So he's been even better than Dubón against lefties, and he's been way better than Dubón against righties. And so I've seen people say, I wish they traded Darren Ruff instead. Well, I also think that doesn't make any sense because Ruff is a much more dangerous offensive player. I get the versatility and the athleticism and youth of Mauricio Dubón, but they kind of have that in Estrada. He played some outfield for the Giants last year. He can play second. We've seen that he plays a good second. He can play short. He played some short last night in the game against St. Louis. And yeah, I mean, so they're similar players in a lot of ways, and they chose Estrada. So Dubón is a great kid, and he's going to get a better opportunity in Houston. And in exchange, the Giants picked up that third catcher we've been talking about that they need on their 40-man roster, because right now it's just Bart and Casali. And what would happen if either performance tanked, which we'll talk about? It's such a weird year for Joey Bart so far. Such a weird year, and we're going to devote some time to him in a minute. But let's just say the strikeouts don't go away and the overall performance just continues to free fall. Not that it is currently free falling, but if it just free falls because of the strikeouts or an injury, they don't have somebody else to fill in who's like major league ready at the catcher position in their organization. And so they acquire one by the name of Michael Papierski from the Houston Astros in exchange for Dubón. So Papierski goes to AAA, and Farhan Zaidi said, I forget whose article it was that I read yesterday, that Papierski is major league ready from a defensive perspective. And the offense, he's got the tools that they like to work with. He commands the strike zone very well, walks a lot, doesn't strike out a lot. So there's a lot to work with, and he very much fits the mold of what the Giants are looking for from their offensive players. He hasn't hit for enough power, but I think they believe they can get power out of guys. We've seen that. That was the question with Lamont Wade when he came over in a trade from the Twins, was can he hit for power? Well, he very much answered that question last year. I'm not saying Papierski's going to follow that exact same line, but they've had this type of player before where the on-base skills and the strike zone command is really good, but the question is power. We'll see. I think that Papierski, we'll probably see him, if I had to guess, we'll probably see him at some point in 2022, whether it's performance-based or somebody gets banged up at the catcher position. He seems to be the next in line, and also a great makeup guy. It always sounds weird saying that, not like face makeup, but character makeup. From all the reports I've read, he is considered very good in that department. So coming up next, I want to shift our attention to how are the Giants going to get Tommy La Stella, Dubón gone. How are they going to get La Stella on the roster? Because there isn't an obvious move, and it might have to be an unpopular move, optioning a very deserving player of sticking on the Major League roster. So we'll talk about that in just a minute. But first, our partners at BetOnline continue to be the number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even next season's NFL futures. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. I haven't seen the Carlos Rodon Cy Young odds lately. They were long odds to start the year, and then he became the co-favorite. But then last night's outing was a total clunker, and so maybe you can get in on a better opportunity now after that game. I haven't checked it out, but head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. Bet online, where the game starts. All right, as promised, I want to talk about how are the Giants going to add Tommy La Stella to the roster. They are going to add Tommy La Stella to the roster. I've seen a lot of Tommy La Stella pessimism, and I realized that what I'm not doing a good job of explaining is that last year's Tommy La Stella was not the best version of Tommy La Stella. It was a complete down year for him that was also ravaged by injuries. And so I think a lot of people saw that and they're like, why do we care so much about this guy? Why did they give this contract that they gave to this guy? So I'm going to do a little bit of a better job explaining why I think he's a must-add to the roster. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast. Recaps of MLB games with analysis from our local experts, taking fans through the season like no other network, free and available wherever you get podcasts. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do to add Tommy La Stella. I'm not sure they're going to add him today. I would expect that he'll be in Colorado today. He's been on a rehab assignment, I think, since the 3rd of May. So it's been close to 2 weeks, and I want to say he's played 3 games in a row for Sacramento, at least 2 games in a row. And assuming he's coming out of these not re-aggravating that Achilles and that he's feeling okay, he's due to be activated. And the reason I would say that maybe not today is because I think he definitely played yesterday, and I believe he played 2 games in a row also prior to that. I could be wrong about the exact timing, but I'm 98% sure he played yesterday. And so I'm not sure that I think they want to give him a day off is what I'm saying. And so maybe this move doesn't have to be made today, but eventually a move is coming. And the question is, what are they going to do? Because right now, yesterday they made a transaction. They added Junior Marte to the bullpen. They called him up and they optioned Donovan Walton. And you might be saying, who the heck is Donovan Walton? Well, Donovan Walton was added to the Major League roster when the Dubón trade was announced. And so they had an open spot, and for 1 game, they inserted Donovan Walton. Walton was recently acquired from the Seattle Mariners in exchange for Prelander Berroa, who was doing well and was a legitimate prospect for the Giants. Not like a top 100 guy, not a guy who's in their top 10 per se, but not just some like minor league deal that should be completely ignored or mostly ignored. It was a legitimate trade and an interesting one. And so Walton was then added to the Giants 40-man roster because he was on the Mariners 40-man roster. I think he had been DFA'd, though. I'm not sure exactly if he had been DFA'd. I can't remember. They've made so many little transactions, especially with the Mariners recently. So anyway, they add Walton, who I think the conversation about Dubón and Lastella and preferring Dubón to Lastella and how I'm saying they're not related on the roster, they don't fill the same role. Walton does. He's the Lastella insurance. He's a left-handed hitting player who can play the middle infield and specifically second base. That's where he played when he started in this game on Saturday. Got his first hit with the Giants. He's very fast. And anyway, so they add him on Saturday, and then they option him on Sunday and add Junior Marte, which brought them to 13 position players and 13 pitchers, which I would imagine is their preference. I think they want more pitchers, not fewer pitchers. And so when you're adding Tommy La Stella back to the 26-man roster and you're currently at 13 position players, 13 pitchers, unless you want to go 14 position players, 12 pitchers, you would have to send out a position player to add La Stella, right? And so the issue is there's nobody that they can send down who is an obvious candidate. So the only players who even can be sent down are Mike Yastrzemski, Joey Bart, Austin Slater, and Luis Gonzalez. I've talked about this before. They're not going to option Joey Bart. Like some people say, well, he's struggled a lot, so option him. Well, then you only have one catcher on your roster, and they're not going to do that. So that's not happening. Not happening. So then Austin Slater and Mike Yastrzemski, not happening. So the only guy who makes any sense at all is Luis Gonzalez. And Luis Gonzalez, all he's done is come up since Steven Duggar went down with the oblique injury and hit .349 with a .397 on base and .492 slugging. Yes, some of that is inflated by last night's game when he hit a home run against Albert Pujols. So, I mean, we kind of should take that out, but it's part of the line now. I mean, that's what he's done in the major leagues so far this year. I mean, in 21 games, that's what he's done. 73 plate appearances, 13.7% strikeout rate, which is super low. League average is around 22%. Again, 13.7 for Gonzalez. He's made a lot of contact. He hasn't chased a lot. He's done everything they could ask. The defense has been a little bit shaky, but I think they view that as more of a fluky thing as opposed to him being just a bad defensive player. He made a nice diving, sliding catch in the game yesterday. So sending out Luis Gonzalez as the only clear option with keeping the balance of 13 position players and 13 pitchers would be quite unpopular. And in my opinion, I'm not sure it makes them better, because the way they're running it out now, they're able to have on any given night against a right-handed pitcher, Wade, Yastrzemski, Peterson, and Luis Gonzalez, who are all left-handed hitting outfielders, but they're using one of them, typically Peterson, at the DH spot. And so if you option Luis Gonzalez, then you go with those three lefties in your outfield, probably, with Peterson in left, Yaz in center, and Wade in right. That's what they've said they would do if those three are in the outfield. And then that means at the DH spot, you're adding a right-handed player, basically, is what it means. So last night against a right-handed starter, they had Longoria at third and Flores at second. And let's say you add Tommy La Stella. I guess he could be the DH, and you could stick with Longoria at third and Flores at second, with Estrada then on the bench. Or La Stella could play second and Flores could DH. But I'm just not sure that, I mean, if anything, I think it's neutral from where it is now, because you're losing a bat who's been productive in Gonzalez, but you're adding a bat who I think will be productive in Tommy La Stella. So maybe it's a wash, but to me, it might make more sense to go with 14 position players and just ride it out and see if you can get by with that and continue to cycle guys through in the bullpen. There is a limit on the number of times you can option players, though, this year, and so they can't just do this perpetually, but something usually happens, whether it's an injury or some performance really starts to stand out, like maybe Luis Gonzalez just goes into a huge funk and then it becomes obvious you just option him and call up a pitcher. But this is what I'm watching for. When they add Lastella, it's either going to be optioning Luis Gonzalez or optioning a pitcher would be my guess. And so they have to do it. They're not just going to not add Tommy La Stella, right? Like, this should be obvious. La Stella, this is what I wanted to say about the numbers. Since 2019, La Stella has 600 plus plate appearances against right-handed pitchers. He's hit 286 with a 352 on base and 483 slugging. It's a 125 weighted runs created plus, meaning about 25 percentage points, or even just percent, above the 100 league average. And he's done it with like an 8% strikeout rate and like an 8% walk rate. I think the walk rate is a tick higher. And so he's a very good offensive player against right-handed pitching, in my opinion. We didn't really see it last year. We saw the extreme plate discipline. It just wasn't a great year. Like, he just kind of was out of whack all year, but he actually hit the ball hard into some bad luck early in the season, kind of a la Darren Ruff this year. And he just never quite fully made it back, and he was always dealing with these nagging injuries, including missing a lot of time with a hamstring injury, I believe. So I continue to believe in Tommy La Stella for that reason. I mean, like I'm saying, 286 average, first of all, is well above league average. So if you don't strike out a lot and you have a even like normal average on balls in play, that's how you hit for high batting average. And so for my batting average friends, you're going to like Tommy La Stella. He should, in theory, hit for a high batting average. For the on-base inclined, such as myself, 352 is nice. For the power inclined, I think a lot of people don't understand. He also hits for power. That's a 200 isolated power, essentially, which is well above average power. So he can make well above average contact, hit for above average power, get on base at an above average rate. I was not impressed with his defense, but I guess what I'm saying, maybe you option Luis Gonzalez and La Stella can be more of a DH for you when he's out there. So I don't know, but I'm definitely going to be looking for that. So coming up next, a little more about Luis Gonzalez and how he pitched in this game, and I just loved kind of the energy towards the end of the game. So we'll talk about that for just a minute, how the Giants faced off against Albert Pujols, and also, as promised, where Joey Bart ranks among the very best players in baseball this year. You're not going to want to miss that. So all that in just a second. But first, make every day your birthday with Bilt's Birthday Cake Puffs. Bilt has taken the delicious experience of biting into a fresh slice of birthday cake, enrobed it in 100% white chocolate, and added sprinkles. with 150 calories, 16 grams of protein, and only 9 grams of sugar in this limited time flavor is an amazing option if you are looking for a healthy way to get flavor and variety for your day. All Bilt Puffs are covered in 100% real chocolate. That means with Bilt, you can eat healthy and actually enjoy eating it and actually enjoy doing it. Imagine that, right? You can have healthy food that tastes like birthday cake. Is absolutely a no-brainer. So go to Bilt.com and get birthday cake puffs now. Use promo code LOCKED15 on Bilt.com and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Bilt.com. All right, as promised, I want to kind of tie things together, talk about this game last night. ESPN, man, the Giants do not seem to play well on national television. And man, the broadcasters, they couldn't be less familiar with the San Francisco Giants. I'm sorry. Just from the very beginning, all they're talking about is, all the different lineups the Giants have used. Oh my God, who's going to even be at the plate? We have no idea. They just have no clue what's going on. I'm sorry. But first of all, the different lineups are because, in large part, they've had so many injuries, right? Like, think about that stretch with the COVID IL when they had Mike Ford and Jason Krizan and whoever. That was a time when it was like, who is in the lineup? We don't even know these guys. Of course, we know the guys, but a lot of fans probably were showing up to the park like, what the heck is going on? And they've had other normal injuries like Steven Duggar and Lamont Wade Jr. and on and on. So I think they were kind of off the mark with that commentary right from the start. And then the Giants just didn't play well. There was a horrible strike call on Lamont Wade Jr. when they were down 4-0. Runner on first, 1 out. It was like 9 inches outside, and he called just a big hook that never even threatened the strike zone. They call strike 3, would have been ball 4. Big call, and I just hate that you can't at least challenge, right? Like they do in tennis. Just a quick little challenge, show it on the big board, play it. It should take 10 seconds. Outside, nope, ball 4. We got it wrong. Send them to first base. Maybe you get 2 challenges in a game and they're quick. That's the thing. If you go to the headset, I'm not a fan, but just quick review, even if it's in the umpire's ear and they're just looking at what we're looking at home and you can see it's clearly a ball. Quick challenge, send them to first. And if you get 2 a game, and if you lose 1, you lose that challenge. But if you get it right, you maintain having 2. That's my thought. Anyway, I want to talk about the fun, because it wasn't fun at first. The Giants got completely blown out in this game. Uncharacteristically bad start. The only bad start so far this year for Carlos Rodon. I'm not worried about him. Just chalk it up to baseball, and that happens sometimes. He wasn't sharp, and the Giants' offense wasn't sharp. But it ended on a high note because Luis González came into pitch, and I thought it was quite entertaining. I just want to say, tying in with the idea that he might be optioned, it would be unpopular, and I imagine there's going to be big kind of uproar on social media, Giants fans, about it if he gets optioned. And B, I just have to say, like, I like Luis González's energy. There's something about him that he just kind of is easygoing and like kind of playful on the field, and but also serious, and I don't know. I like his vibes, and to have him come into pitch, I just thought it was highly entertaining. He threw a pitch in the low 40s and he threw a pitch in the mid 80s. So the 40 mile an hour differential on his fastest pitch and his slowest pitch. He gave up some hits, but also he pitched an inning plus, and I just thought it was quite entertaining. And then in the top of the ninth, Albert Pujols came into pitch, his first career appearance on the mound, which is just hilarious and funny and crazy that we got to see that in our last game, probably ever seeing Albert Pujols face the Giants. So obviously congratulations to him on a first ballot Hall of Fame career, and it was quite entertaining to watch him pitch. The Giants got some runs off him. Evan Longoria singled and asked for the baseball, and the dugout was smiling. Longoria was laughing. And then with 2 outs, Luis González hit a 3-run homer, was it? It was a multi-run homer. I think it was a 3-run homer. And then was it the next batter? Joey Bart hit a homer on like a 40-mile-an-hour pitch. And so those numbers go into their records. I can't really take them out. But we don't read too much into the fact that those guys hit homers. That's one thing about Gonzalez is he hasn't really hit for enough power. He hit that big home run in Milwaukee. He clearly has power. He just hasn't got to it in games a lot, except the one home run in Milwaukee and then the home run against Albert Pujols. But for Bart, I mean, I was like, man, if he strikes out here, imagine, right? He strikes out more than anyone in the game. The strikeout rate is the highest in baseball. And if he strikes out on a 40-mile-an-hour pitch from Albert Pujols, he's not going to like that. But instead, he hits a home run with 2 strikes. So where Bart has been among the best players in baseball, as I've been teasing all along for this show today, is his walk rate. And that is crazy because coming into the year, we would have said that that was one of the biggest concerns. And we certainly did say he needs to be better at strike zone discipline. He can't just be a wild hacking free swinger, never walking. That was his big issue in 2020 when he was kind of forced into major league action. He walked just 2.7% of the time. I think he had 3 walks in 111 plate appearances. And this year, among 244 hitters with at least 80 plate appearances, Bart's 15% walk rate is the 15th highest in Major League Baseball. So he has clearly worked on this extremely hard. And I'm sure the coaching staff and Kapler are just telling him, look, we don't care if you have a 185 batting average, which he does. If you can just do not swing, if it's not in this exact zone that you're looking for. Like the ability to transform Bart from being just completely overly aggressive into a guy who has a 15% walk rate, 15th highest in baseball among 244 players, through a significant, it's not a huge sample, but 80 plate appearances, it's amazing. And so he has a 185 average, but a 338 on base percentage and a 117 weighted runs created plus. So the Giants actually rank 5th in baseball for catchers in weighted runs created plus at 116. They have the highest strikeout rate at 38% and the highest walk rate at 14%. League average weighted runs created plus for catchers is 84, and the Giants are at 116. So it's been a very, very strange route to get there, but that's just the reality of what they've done. So it's pretty funny, pretty crazy, and I continue to be fascinated to see how it's all going to play out. In my opinion, it'll be tough to maintain above average offense if you're striking out 40+% of the time, which is what we've seen from Bart. So he needs to rein in the Ks, but the discipline, if that can stick, then there's much more to work with here than I was fearful of coming into the year. So anyway, that's all the time we have for today. We could do a whole episode about Bart, but that's all the time we have for today. Coming up tomorrow, we'll be reacting to Game 1 of this 3-game series in Colorado. Always a good place to go if you're trying to kind of break through with the bats a little bit. Giants got shut out on Saturday and then mostly got shut down on Sunday until they got to face a position player in the 9th inning. So we'll be back talking about that and any roster moves that get made. It could be, like I said, Luis González. We'll see. So thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen. For your next listen, check out Locked On MLB, where Paul Francis Sullivan, please call him Sully, brings you his unique perspective on the major leagues, past and present. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out a lot. So thank you so much in advance, and thank you to everyone who's done so already. I can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening. Stay Locked On Giants.